marvelous. How easily we stumble into looping conflicts, certain we've tried our utmost, and yet the tangles refuse to yield. Welcome, dear listener, to this exploration titled Avoidant Attachment. Check these 5 blind spots if your relationship is stuck in conflict cycles. If you find yourself endlessly perplexed, staring at a beloved partner whose vexing reactions seem to fluster and confound, perhaps these 5 hidden pitfalls will shed the illumination you've been seeking. Take a seat and let us examine together the ways in which an avoidant attachment style can quietly sabotage our dearest ties, all while we remain oblivious to our own part in the dance. Let us begin with an image. 2 people locked in a conversation that brims with invisible tension. One speaks calmly, so it seems, while the other wilts or grows agitated. The seemingly calm speaker wonders, "Why does my partner overreact? My words are neutral enough." But imagine if one's tone, posture, or fleeting scowl radiates a subtle contempt. A puff of exasperation here, a narrowed stare there, barely perceptible to the one delivering it, yet thunderous to the anxious observer. Those with avoidant tendencies often grew up in environments where emotional needs were met with varying degrees of coldness or exasperation. Over time, they learned to steel themselves against emotional hostility. They can, often unwittingly, reproduce that same low-grade hostility in their relationships. Why? Because in childhood, they adapted to these cues, concluding hostility was normal and had to be shrugged off. Their partner, however, may have a well-tuned sensitivity to subtle signs of rejection or scorn. Thus, without consciously intending it, the avoidant partner emits an aura of "leave me be," laced with scorn for emotional needs they privately deem overly complicated. If you suspect this might be happening, here's a test. Set a camera, by mutual agreement, of course, and capture a heated exchange. Then watch it back with the sound muted, focusing solely on each other's expressions and body language. Do you spot eye rolls, smirks, folded arms, an aloof head tilt? All those micro-expressions can communicate volumes of hostility, even when the spoken words are mild. The result is conflict that seems unjustified to the avoidant partner, but is perfectly logical to the person receiving those subtle barbs. Picture, if you will, a romantic arrangement that is perfectly convenient for one person, the avoidant. It might look like this. They propose meeting if it fits their timetable, visit if it suits their schedule, show warmth if it doesn't conflict with personal space. Meanwhile, the partner leaps through hoops to belong, striving to nestle themselves tidily into the avoidant person's life. The avoidant partner then muses, "Well, it works for me. If it doesn't work for them, they can leave." But not everyone leaves, especially the anxious or those with shaky boundaries who think, "If I can just make them love me, I'll be validated." Here is the trouble. A robust relationship hinges upon mutual proximity seeking. Both individuals rearrange certain elements of their routines to accommodate each other. If the avoidant side rarely invests in seeing the other's world, be it their home, their interests, or their emotional gatherings, the entire relationship becomes lopsided. The anxious or earnest partner does all the traveling, all the scheduling, all the bridging. Meanwhile, the avoidant person draws back, subtly confirming that their partner is too needy or always around, yet never noticing their own passivity. This pattern can be so ingrained it's invisible. One might believe, "I give plenty, my partner can come over any time." But in truth, to show genuine closeness requires stepping out of your lair and making an effort to inhabit their space. Ask yourself, do I plan dates equally often, or do they do it all? Do I stay at their place as often as they stay at mine? Do I give their interests the same level of curiosity they devote to mine? If not, this is a blind spot to remedy. lest you invite only those willing to overextend themselves, perpetuating the cycle of mismatched investment. Avoidant attachment often springs from deep childhood experiences that taught the child, "I can handle my needs alone, but others are too messy." You become the self-sufficient rock and easily slip into a worldview that sees your partner as the less stable half. If you can fix them, great, but rarely do you assume they can meet your vulnerability. The trouble is, if you're convinced your partner is incompetent at emotional regulation, you won't see any benefit in bringing your incomplete thoughts, your uncertainties, or your unsolved problems to them. You'll keep them locked behind a stern face, while outwardly continuing the charade of perfect self-reliance. Consider how this stance can erode intimacy. A healthy partner longs to see where you are undone, uncertain, or in need of comfort, because that is precisely how two humans bond, by sharing not only strengths, but also tender underbellies. Yet the avoidant might proclaim, "No, I must solve my problems alone. You, on the other hand, can't solve them for me, so what's the point in telling you?" This places the other in the not okay category, someone to placate or manage, but never to trust with your deeper self. A classic scenario: the avoidant person disappears for a weekend to think. They return with a grand pronouncement, "I've concluded we're not working," or "I think we should do X." Meanwhile, the partner stands there, baffled at not having been involved in the problem solving. If the avoidant had instead said, "I'm not sure how to handle my frustration. Could we sit and talk about it?" the partner might have revealed a brilliant solution that integrated both viewpoints. The invitation is to try letting your partner be more than the needy other. Dare to see them as an equal ally, a source of guidance and empathy for you too. One hallmark of avoidant attachment is the protective shell that says, "I must appear strong and put together, or else I'm worthless." Thus arises a stinging aversion to any hint of criticism. And so, in the early, blissful stages of dating, the avoidant person embraces compliments and positive feedback, but quietly dreads the day their partner spots imperfections. If the partner eventually voices, "Hey, I notice you struggle with X," the avoidant heart hears, "You're not good enough. I regret choosing you." Trouble is, healthy relationships inevitably involve noticing each other's frailties. A secure partner is not out to humiliate or shame you. They might gently say, "I see you're stressed. Let me help." Or, "Have you considered changing that approach?" But if your reflex is to interpret help as condemnation, you'll either bristle with defensiveness or retreat in shame. Then your partner is left puzzling. Why does a small piece of feedback cause such a massive overreaction? Ask yourself, do I interpret suggestions as attacks on my worth rather than invitations to connect? Must I be an unassailable fortress to be worthy of love? The reality is, real love blooms when we let others glimpse our not-so-polished corners. If your devotion to perfection prevents that, you'll forever be on guard against your partner seeing the real you, and the pair of you will remain superficially engaged at best, locked in conflict cycles whenever your veneer cracks. Now we arrive at a crucial piece: emotional attunement. A more avoidant mind might think, if I can solve the puzzle logically, that's enough. Yet relationships are not chiefly about logic. They revolve around subtle, living emotional resonance. If you suspect conflict keeps coming back, ask, do I truly see my partner's feeling state right now? Do I read the concern in their eyes, the tremor in their voice? Or do I fixate on the bullet points of their argument and propose a neat solution while ignoring the entire emotional storm swirling within them? If your partner's eyes glimmer with tears and your mind simply calculates, "She's overreacting, I'll give her a plan," you'll likely be met with renewed frustration. She doesn't want just your plan. She wants you present. She wants to be felt. She wants your gaze and your steady breathing to tell her that her upset matters. Without that attunement, physically sitting face to face, noticing each micro-expression, letting yourself feel, yes, feel, a bit of her sadness or fear or anger, no mechanical solution will mend the rift. Even if your plan is genius, she will remain emotionally estranged. This kind of attunement is especially foreign to avoidant folks who grew up learning to ignore or minimize feelings, both their own and others. But ignoring them does not make them vanish. Your partner's sense of closeness depends on your willingness to step into that realm. If you seldom do so, you'll inadvertently keep them shut out. Imagine trying to waltz without letting the music guide your steps. It becomes a graceless pantomime. So too is the dance of intimacy if you refuse the rhythm of emotional cues. Observe how each blind spot plays into the next. Hostility. You radiate subtle contempt, baffling your partner. Proximity seeking. You let them bear the burden of closeness, stoking imbalance. You are not okay. You assume your partner's emotional world is messy, so you must remain steadfastly aloof. Need to be seen as perfect. You hide your flaws, dreading any critique, stifling deeper connection. Attunement. You fail to tune in to your partner's emotional signals, leaving them cold and perpetuating conflict. Picture a couple locked in cyclical arguments. She says, "I feel alone. Why won't you open up?" He thinks, "You ask too much. Your demands are suffocating." But in a kinder light, we see an avoidant partner who has no knowledge. He emanates chilly vibes, does little to initiate closeness, disbelieves in his partner's capacity to help, resents any critique, and lacks the skill for emotional resonance. Meanwhile, the partner he calls suffocating may just be responding to a well of unacknowledged tension. What then can be done to break this cycle? Acknowledge the signals you give off. If your partner seems to explode out of nowhere, notice the micro-expressions, your body language, your curt or sardonic tone. Perhaps you're inadvertently stirring their alarm. Offer equal closeness. Challenge yourself to plan half the dates, meet them halfway, spend time in their domain, show up in their environment. Mutual investment fosters balanced, respectful relationships. Let them help you. Dare to confide an unsolved concern, a puzzle, a moment of confusion, instead of descending into your mental fortress. Watch how your partner responds if you grant them genuine participation in your inner life. Shift from perfect to real. Let go of the standard that says, "I must never show weakness." Instead, discover how authenticity, vulnerability, and the occasional messy feeling can draw you deeper into each other's trust. Practice emotional attunement. Next conflict, look them in the eye. Seek to feel their emotion, not just decode the logic of their words. Yes, it's uncomfortable if you're unaccustomed, but repeated practice rewires your approach to intimacy. No, it's not an overnight process. Resist the temptation to hide behind, "I just am who I am." Attachment styles are malleable. Neural pathways can shift. If your relationship is battered by repeated conflict cycles, you can attempt these steps alone or with your partner. Some will benefit from coaching, therapy, or guided exercises to unearth these blind spots. As you whittle away at each one, you'll discover new capacity for closeness you never dreamed you could enjoy. And perhaps, at last, the perpetual conflicts that once defined your bond can transform into collaborative, gently navigated challenges. Instead of unleashing hostility or retreating into isolation, you greet a disagreement with curiosity and empathy. Instead of expecting to handle it all alone, you find synergy by stepping into your partner's emotional sphere, meeting them right in the tension, secure in the knowledge that your worth does not hinge on perfection. You become what your younger self could not conceive, a steadfast, consistent, yet emotionally present partner. Freed from old anxieties, the tapestry of your relationship weaves in brightness and depth. May these insights lead you there.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.